Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into the shocking story of Jack Elam. Jack Elam detested him more than William Scott. Was born as Jack Elam, Jack Elam in Miami on November 13, 1920, Arizona. Elam had early hardship in life, including his untimely death mother when he was a young lad. Eventually brought up by family members who relocated to where he went to high school, California, and ultimately attended Santa Monica to study junior college. He spent his early years characterized by a diligent work ethic and an unwavering resolve to surpass challenging conditions. A childhood mishap left Elam, whose eyes are always on the go, and characteristic that would eventually define his on-screen picture. Despite being initially this physical characteristic is a drawback, eventually become one of his most familiar traits that give out a threatening, unpredictable nature of the antagonistic roles he would become proficient before setting out. Elam had a full-time acting career. Many occupations, such as working as an auditor and accountant for the Samuel Goldwyn Studios. His Hollywood debut was unorthodox. He used his industry relationships and business sense to barter for tiny portions that are gradually changing from jobs behind the scenes to Elam's appearance in front of the camera. The late 1940s marked the start of the film career, although he was given more significant duties in the 1950s, particularly in the genre of westerns that peaked at the period. His crazy eyes, crooked smile, and sour he was a perfect fit for playing because of his voice. Outlaws, crooks, and gunslingers. Sheriff's movies like Rawhide 1951, The Far Country 1952, High Noon 1954, and The West's Once Upon a Time, 1968, displayed his skills as a villain, in which he added nuance and an odd charm to even the most evil figures. Even if you often play menacing, Elam was well known for her roles in the industry for his humorous wit and friendly demeanor off-screen. But Elam's skills weren't limited to villains. As the Western genre changed, he achieved success in the 1970s and 1980s. And charming shift to a more humorous roles that exhibit perfect timing and self-awareness. His role in movies such as Encourage Your Neighborhood Sheriff 1969 and It Support Your Local Gunfighter in the sequel. Elam was shown to be capable of laughing in 1971. At his own on-screen identity and provide comedy and coziness to the screen. His adaptability brought him a fresh generation of supporters and solidified his position not only as a heavy TYP cast, but as a truly talented artist. As the Western genre changed, so did Elam's professional trajectory. He started making fun of his own villain in the 1970s. Appearance in several humorous westerns. Among his most cherished performances appeared in the movie The Cannonball Run, 1981, where he portrayed an eccentric physician. With Dom DeLuise and Burt Reynolds, his self-loathing wit and readiness to make fun of his evil heritage won him over to a new. Elam also created a generation of fans. Regular televised appearances with appearances as guests on vintage shows like Twilight Zone's Gunsmoke Bonanza, The Rifleman and The Gun Will Travel, solidifying his reputation as a mainstay of American entertainment. In the middle of the century, Jack Elam's career trajectory starred in nearly 70 movies and more. His presence in 100 TV episodes, constantly adding an own flair to any manufacturing in a sector where top character performers were sometimes overlooked by men. Elam created a special area for oneself using the talent, screen presence, as well as a readiness to accept his characters are peculiar and out of the ordinary. Although frequently ethically dubious or blatantly evil, had an odd allure and sardonic humor that set them apart even in outfits with celebrities. Elam's contributions to the movie industry included, acknowledged later in life, such as ceremonial admission into the Hall of Outstanding Western Artists at the National Museum of Western and Cowboy Heritage. Despite not receiving any significant acting honors, his impact on the genre, as well as the capacity to enthrall listeners with a just appearance or line delivery, are still unquestionably. He stopped performing in the beginning of the 1990s and lived out his final years in Oregon, having fun with his loved ones and considering a lengthy and prosperous career of the legendary Jack Elam. Actor most renowned for his unique appearance and noteworthy parts in westerners, went through two important marriages throughout his lifetime. John Louise was his first wife. He married Hadgert in 1937. This union signaled a turning point in Elim's private life during the time, considering his early years of hardship and aspiration prior to achieving long-term success. Jean supported him during his time in Hollywood. The lean years, during which he did a range of from positions as an accountant to a long-term manager of the Boytown orphanage prior to launching his acting career. They were married for about 24 years. During which Elim gradually entered the motion picture business and started to establish himself as a trustworthy character actor, especially renowned for portraying antagonists because of his wild-eyed look brought on by his left eye was injured as a toddler. Jean Louise Hadgert sadly died away on January 24, from colon cancer 1961. Her passing signaled a significant Elim's personal tragedy the pair experienced had a lengthy and enduring collaboration, and her death created a huge hole in his life. The disease and subsequent demise of his wife arrived at a time when Elim's career was taking off, positioning him in a challenging emotional state as he balanced career achievement with personal loss. Friends and co-workers observed that Elim was profoundly impacted by Jean's passing, and it required some time for him to restore his emotional stability. After 7 months in August 1961, Elim got married again. Margaret M. Jennison was his second spouse, who would be his mate for life and be with him until he passes away. After several decades, Margaret played a stabilizing function in Elim's sacrifice, friendship and assistance as he became prominent in television and movies world as his notoriety increased because of memorable parts in movies like Previously in the West, Support Your Local Sheriff and many TV westerns. Margaret continued to be a steadfast and devoted presence of the couple was renowned for maintaining their privacy. Comparatively quiet in spite of Jack's increasing renown as one of Hollywood's most well-known actors in character roles, Jack and Margaret created a peaceful household life away from the spotlight of Hollywood, as having fun and raising kids. A level of seclusion that Elim had acquired to value following years of public scrutiny. They were married for over 4 decades that demonstrate their reciprocal loyalty and tenacity. Margaret lived longer than Jack, who died in 2003. And is retrieved by as a grounding for those close to the actor force in his life, a person who gave peace, love, and a lasting relationship through the peaks and valleys of a vibrant and intricate career in the enormous tapestry. Numerous rivalries and feuds among Hollywood legends frequently simmered below the surface. Glitter and glamour. One of the most unexpected and possibly the least understood was Jack Elim's strong distaste for expressed distaste for the legendary Gary Cooper, a Western star, when Elim was renowned for his threatening eyes, rough persona, and enduring depictions of wicked henchmen or strange. Few individuals were aware that behind the criminal scenes he had in his heart anger directed toward the individual who has long been regarded as a model cowboy grandeur and traditional American virtue. Elim was a contradictory man who performed wicked with flair, yet was said to be off-camera, a kind and witty man. Never withheld his views on those he believed had betrayed him or stood in for the industry's hypocrisy, and in his Gary Cooper's eyes were on top of that. Enumerate Elim's hatred's origins were not the result of a single event, but instead developed gradually over time, becoming by a combination of work-related annoyance, individual interactions and ideological. Elim entered the realm of discord appearing somewhat late after working as he worked as a studio auditor and accountant, actually in charge of keeping an eye on the film budgets before he ever took over. At the time he started, in front of the camera, obtaining positions in the late 1940s, and Gary Cooper was already a star in the early 1950s. Imposing character in Hollywood with made a name for himself in classics like Sergeant York. Cooper and High Noon were honored, and shielded by a mechanism that appeared to be elitist to Elim. Shallow and incredibly unjust to character actors such as himself. Routes infrequently intersected in the early years, frequently at studios or gatherings works, and Elim is never one to cut corners. Cooper came across as distant and he has an unbearably self-righteous opinion. Elim gave importance to grit, improvisation, and the unity of the working-class ensemble. Cooper, the crew, projected a cautious maintained Elam's air of valor and elegance believed that this picture was a front concealing what he thought it was chilly and haughty. According to multiple sources, detachment in an interview from the 1970s, Elam Cooper was described as the prince of fakers who thought Cooper had ridden his attractive appearance and refined manner to fame while addressing less well-known actors with an air of contemptuous indifference that almost disdainful, yet the tension between them went beyond simple philosophy or professional. Elam frequently shared anecdotes. Some may have overstated, while others were credible, regarding instances in which Cooper had disparaged or ignored him at events or on set. In a recurring story, Elam described being on the outskirts of a production that Cooper declined to accept recommendations from a director just because the proposal had been made while Elam thought that this was within earshot. Cooper's implicit contempt for the character of unattractive men in Hollywood actors who put up the effort and Western's texture, but never their elegance, he had no place in his world, according to the posters. Elam allegedly said, "For a man like myself," in an interview from the 1980s, unless I was dying in the mud there or being shot. It was also a divide in ideology between, despite being frequently stereotyped, the two men. Elam as a villain who cherished integrity and opposition to man-made buildings. His anti-authoritarian views were unadulterated, and little tolerance for the elderly. The Hollywood star system that he perceived Cooper was rewarded for his appearance over his work by contrast was a representative of the establishment that the studio likes executives who are well liked by the general public America and is renowned for being conservative. In his later on, Elam realized that this wasn't only he spotted Cooper, which was hazardous and annoying. As representative of an acting generation who propagated antiquated ideas of morality and masculinity are frequently at the price of the more grim realities that Elam with additional character actors aimed to examine if there was any chance of there was no longer any reconciliation between the two. Cooper's notoriety started to wane a little and at last, Elam was receiving the meteor parts that he had long merited, particularly in revisionists and spaghetti westerns cowboy stories, even if he never explicitly. Cooper was a rival for the title of leading man status. Elam's achievement was partially due to confirmation of what he thought Hollywood more diverse and rugged faces were required. More moral complexity and actual individuals. Later in life, when he was questioned in interviews to see if he regretted anything or he wished he had collaborated with Elam, would frequently laugh and utter something similar to, "Well, I'm happy that never had to show that up close." Stern Cooper, "I could have destroyed his halo." In 2003, Jack Elam passed away. Fondly recalled by moviegoers and fans historians as a cherished representative of he introduced humor and danger to Western cinema and compassion to each part he performed. Yet his own contempt for Gary Cooper remains among the more mysterious. His otherwise vibrant life subplots, whether it stems from jealousy in the workplace, conflicting egos, or Elam's deeper anger toward Cooper, acts as an intriguing reminder that Hollywood myths similar to the westerns they lived in were frequently characterized by moral ambiguities, and that even the most vicious criminals possessed resentment to bear. Jack Elam, the most adored American character actor renowned for depicting vibrant grizzled sidekicks and villains in Western-style movies and TV series, died on October 20, 2003. Located at the 82 years old, his demise was ascribed to chronic congestive heart failure problem when the heart must effectively pump blood in order to fulfill the necessities of his body. In the last years of Elam's life had been deteriorating health, and his condition throughout time grew worse with time. He spent his final days at his home's peaceful comfort in the tiny hamlet of Ashland, Oregon. Is tucked away in the state's southern region, is renowned for its vibrant art and natural beauty. Ashland's atmosphere offered a tranquil and appropriate hideaway for Elam in his later years, away from the commotion and Hollywood's hustle and bustle, where he had spent. He shared this house for a large portion of his career. Along with Margaret Jennison, his wife, he had been married to her since 1961. Their enduring and committed union was a source of security for him, and Margaret stayed with him as his, despite the restrictions, health deteriorated. Due to his condition, Elam stayed lively and humorous, frequently sharing tales from his work with tourists, and adored people who knew him well remembered that even in his last few months, he kept the friendly demeanor and sardonic humor that made he was such a notable character on, and Elam's passing off the screen signified the end of an era for vintage music fans. Westerns renowned for his unique appearance of his wandering gaze with his expressive scowl and face, he was a mainstay of mid-century film. Although frequently portrayed as a villain, especially throughout his formative years, Elam's range and talent allowed him to develop into more empathetic and humorous roles later in life. His distinct on-screen persona made him among the most well-known personalities in the genre, and his death was lamented by supporters, co-workers, and both the entertainment business and actors. Tributes to his death poured in. Filmmakers and cinema scholars who commended his work in the Western genre and his capacity to transform even tiny roles into enduring performances in The Neighbors of Ashland and Friends recalled him as more than just a movie icon, but as a good-hearted and modest individual. He appreciated his solitude and the straightforward pleasures of daily existence. Despite his absence, the legacy of Jack Elam lives on in the innumerable movies and TV series in which he made his lasting impression on. Jack Elam left behind a heritage of timeless charm and an exceptional mastery of the character. The artistry of the actor with his rugged, hoonade face, noticeable squint, and unyielding dedication to every part he performed. Elam added a striking sense of authenticity to the screen that was difficult for many to duplicate. Whether frightening crowds as a heartless criminal or making them chuckle as a clumsy cowboy with a golden heart, Jack Elam made a lasting impression on American television and movies. His change from a feared antagonist to adored comedian reflected the Hollywood's shifting preferences and showed his versatility as an artist. Even after his death in 2003, his performances are still entertain audiences and act as a reminder of the depth and richness that an outstanding character actor can contribute to narrating.